Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of One Question with Pastor Adam. And hey, I'm Adam. I'm pastor to believers and doubters, to unfaithful Christians, and to faithful atheists. And friends, Jesus wasn't afraid of asking questions, and neither are we here at One Question with Pastor Adam. So, hi, April. Good to see you. And so all questions are on the table, my friends. This is where we bring our doubts. This is where we bring our faith. This is where we bring everything in between. And it's good to have you here. And it's been a week. It is, I don't know if you've had a tough week. Hi, Julia. It's been a tough week. I don't know if anything's going on in your life personally, but kind of worldwide, it's been a tough one with racism always around us, especially now not now, sorry. My words are not coming out right. Racism against our Asian siblings has always been with us. I caught myself when I said, especially now with racism against our Asian siblings. No, it's always been here. And the Vatican talking about not blessing same-sex unions because the Vatican says it's a sin. This is one reason why I wear the rainbow as much as I can. And I've got the rainbow in the back and just got this new rainbow shirt. God loves our LGBTQIA 2+ siblings. And why especially I wear the collar is because there is a lot of religious hatred, shaming against our siblings who are created in the very image of God. And I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to, I didn't know how to frame this in a different way. This isn't the best way to frame it, but I titled, maybe I'll come up with a better title for when I post this, the recording. The Vatican's wrong. It's wrong because of its own beliefs. So my Catholic friends may be upset with me, a Protestant, for saying that the Vatican is wrong. I don't care. I love my Catholic. I have many Catholic friends, and I want to point out, Catholics, by and large, don't follow these kinds of things that the Vatican says. They're against this. So that's why I can say I have Catholic friends who don't like this. And I'm going to argue for you that under its own framing of theology, the Vatican is wrong. It cannot sustain being against our LGBTQIA siblings. And I'm going to tell you why. That's a little teaser for a little later. But these two things, the horrific violence against our Asian siblings, especially that we saw with the 8 people killed in Atlanta, and the Vatican's decision to say that same-sex blessings, again, this may not surprise anyone that it came out and said this, disappoints us, but that view from Catholic theological perspective is unsustainable, and it has to change. And I think we are seeing it changing within the Catholic Church, and that may lead to a division within the Catholic Church. And if it does, I feel bad saying, thank God for that. So anyway, I'm going to take these one by one, and we will see how they fit together, because there is a religious strand that is toxic that unites these two tragic events together. I got a message from one of my friends who lives in New York. Just met over the church Facebook page, and he and I have been kind of going back and forth. He's an Asian. He asked me what I thought from as a pastor about the shootings in Atlanta, and I told him kind of what I've been hearing in the news. I just got an email today. I'm going to read part of this to you. The shooting by a 21-year-old white man opened fire on 3 massage parlors across the Atlanta metro area, murdered 8 people, including 6 Asian women. This comes as the latest major incident of violence suffered by Asian American communities, especially against women. According to a recent report, hate crimes targeting Asian Americans have surged over 150% in major cities in the last year. And unsurprisingly, it's women and non-binary people who are disproportionately harmed by this bigotry. In fact, Asian women have reported twice as many hate incidents over the past year. So I was messaging with my friend about this this morning, and he asked how I felt about it. And I was like, oh man, the surge in hate crimes against Asians is just horrible. And it all, like, this is where I got it wrong. It all like started last year with Trump, and Trump calling it the China virus and the Kung flu and all of these horrible things. And this man who's Asian said to me, Adam, I have been called racist names my whole life. And it's, again, one of those moments where, like, the as a white heterosexual cisgender male, the veil is like lifted from my eyes, and I'm like, oh, it's too easy to blame Trump for this. It's too easy, because this is baked in the American cake. This racism against our Black and brown and Asian siblings is baked into the cake of the United States. And how do we purge it? How do we purge it? I remember when I was growing up, one of my great friends was a Chinese American. His parents had immigrated here, and we used to play baseball, softball out in the field. And whenever he would bat, one of our friends would say a racist term whenever the ball hit the bat, and we would all just laugh it off. Kids having fun, and we were kids, and we've moved beyond that. But that's how our country forms us. In the white supremacy of the United States, you can make these racist slurs against people and just say, I'm joking. Haha, isn't this fun? No, you can't. And then, people say, oh, you're being politically correct. Damn right I'm being politically correct. How about we have some political correctness? How about we elevate the language with one another and not dehumanize one another? Speaking of this, before this last election, I had a conversation with a family member, and this was hard. I know a lot of you have had a similar experience. My daughter was born in China, so all of this conversation, China virus, the Kung flu, all of this, I saw it. That's my daughter. Went to a family member and I was like, hey, Republican family member, hey, what do you think of Trump using China virus? Got a daughter. Oh, he's just telling the truth about where it came from. Really? That's how we're gonna. Kung flu is just telling the truth about where it. I've like such disappointment. And then all of that language that's been heightened in the last year, but has been with us from the beginning. I mean, World War II, we had Japanese concentration camps. We had those concentration camps in the United States. While Hitler was having his concentration camps, the United States had our own concentration camps against our Asian siblings. And we constantly point the finger. They're the bad guy. Yeah, we have done some horrible, horrible things as well that we need to atone for, including the continued racism that infects our country. Now, more specifically to the event of this last week in Atlanta, as a pastor dealing with all of the white supremacy that I've been talking about, also have to talk about the sin of Christian supremacy that infects this country and Christianity throughout the world. That is one of the main messages from this last week. The Vatican's power grab against our LGBTQIA siblings, which I'm going to get to a little later, is a form of Christian supremacy. And this guy who shot 8 people, 6 of them Asian women, on his social media said that he, in his bio, loved God. Really? Here's part of the issue as we've discovering more things about this guy. He dealt with sexual shame, some kind of sexual shame. Who was it? The sheriff, when he gave his talk, said that this guy had a really bad day. All building up from the sexual shame that he was experiencing. He'd had a really bad day the day before. What do you do when you have a bad day? I bet you don't go out and shoot people. You might, I don't know, get your favorite food. You might have something to drink, water, I'm sure. You don't go out and kill people. This white sheriff saying, oh, he had a bad day. Really? If this man was black, you wouldn't be saying he just had a bad day. So here's part of the point of the connections, not just Christian supremacy, but also the shame that Christianity has put around the topic of sexuality. Connects these stories as well. This guy grew up in a Christian, I don't know what Christian church denomination he grew up in, but he was a guy who was never taught how to deal with his own sexuality. He apparently went to like some, I don't know, camps or something, but he was taught by probably at these camps too, where he was trying to get help. He was taught over and over again that his own sexual impulses were shameful. He was addicted to porn, and all he got from his religion, from his Christianity, was shame for it. Now, I'm not here to say, oh yeah, go look at porn. I'm here to say that we got to stop shaming people because of their sexuality. We have to start. I grew up in a culture, including a Christian culture, where we didn't talk about sexuality. We didn't talk about where what I learned about sexuality was that boys will be boys and girls are whores or sluts, right? This, in Christian culture, does not help boys learn how to deal with our sexuality. It doesn't. It doesn't help us learn how to control ourselves. It does not help us see the image of God that is within women. It is toxic Christianity that only shames us or says boys will be boys, which is another way of actually shaming us by saying you can't control yourselves and you're just going to do what you're going to do. I grew up in that. I'm a product of that. And as much as I can help my boys deal with their sexual impulses, the better off they will be and the better off the world will be. And of course, like this, the horrific things that this has done to women and to girls, slut shaming, all of these things that Christianity has done throughout our history, has led this guy to believe that women are less than human and he's got a bad day, and so he can just do whatever he wants and shoot people up because he's frustrated. That's where this leads. And Christianity, myself included, has got to do a better job. And so I, as a pastor, feel like I need to apologize for that sin and how we've failed. And it's rooted in our theology when it comes to the very human thing of sexuality. God created the world and it was good. God created humans in all of our sexuality and it was good. And this tragic event has Christian roots in it, not just because this guy said that he believed in God and grew up in a church, and no church is perfect. We're all human and flawed, but we have to take responsibility for this shaming of sexuality, because this is bad things like this are just going to keep happening if we don't. Bull, Cheryl says, really bad day, Bull Pucky. Yeah. Cheryl says, if this man were black, he wouldn't have been apprehended alive. He'd be shot on sight. Absolutely true. So I want to make a connection to the Vatican on this. I hope that you're seeing the connections. The Catholic Church is, I've got a book back here by a man named Frederick Martel, and his book is Out of the Closet of the Vatican. I think that's what it's called. He does a lot of research and says that a lot, if not most of our Catholic priest siblings, a lot of them are gay. A lot of them are gay men who have been told throughout much of their lives that they are fundamentally disordered. They're shamed for their sexuality. And so they repress it and they become self-loathing gay men. How do you be a priest as a self-loathing human being who have been told that you are objectively disordered? How do you do that? You channel all of your shame and hatred against someone else. You project it all against a scapegoat, which is what our LGBTQIA 2+ community siblings have been for not just the Catholic Church, but for much of the church in general. I have done a couple episodes ago, I did an episode on going through the biblical text and showing you how the passages, I'm not going to say traditionally because this isn't traditionally, the word homosexual was coined in the 19th century, the late 19th century. The first time it was used in a Bible was in 1946. Some of you know the exact date. I think it's 1946 or 1949. It was in the late 1940s when it was first put in. And the people, by the Revised Standard Version, and there were people who advised the folks who made up the committee on the Revised Standard Version, and they said, you better not put this word in there because it's going to cause a lot of hate from Christians toward the homosexual community, towards our LGBTQ siblings. And they were like, nah, we'll just do it anyway. Yeah, that their advisors were right. They shouldn't have put it in because that's not what the biblical writers were talking about. And you can go check out my episode, I think it's 2 episodes ago, where I talked more about that and went in depth on the biblical verses. But Catholics, this is why the Vatican missed the mark on this one, and why it cannot continue doing this under the theological rubric that Catholics have. Those are big words. So in the when Vatican II was formed, it had some statements about natural theology. And here's all what natural theology means. It means we look to nature, the natural world, and we can discover more truth about God's good creation. You see, here's one of the things that as Protestants we can kind of get confused about with our Catholic siblings. Our Catholic siblings do not have this idea of total depravity. They have an idea of original sin, which is for Catholics, which is basically saying we're all in the same boat in that we all mess up. There are times when we all miss the mark. And so when we mess up, this should give us some humility when we see other people messing up, because we're all in the same boat of messing up. That's the essence of original sin. It's a big, bad, awful phrase that has been used to damage people in all kinds of ways. I don't use it because of that very reason, but at its best, it's we're all in the same boat and we all mess up. So let's be gentle and try to forgive one another, because fundamentally rooted in the goodness of creation. So that's what natural theology is. So what we get mixed up with Catholic theology and a form of Calvinism, which claims total depravity. Catholics don't believe in total depravity. In fact, Catholics, I would agree with this on is total depravity is a heresy, is a Protestant heresy. That's not Catholic thought. So here is why the Catholic Church has to change because of its view of natural theology. Vatican II said this: natural revelation, theology, refers to God's self-disclosure in creation through the things that have been made. Scripture and magisterial teachings are equally clear and emphatic that the knowledge of the existence of God and his basic attributes can be achieved by human reasoning reflecting on the created order. The heavens are telling the glory of God, and the firmament proclaims God's handiwork. Day to day pours forth speech, and night to night declares knowledge of God. There is no speech and there are no words. Their voice is not heard, yet their voice goes out through all the earth, and the words in the end of the world. Why does this matter? Because for all of the horrible, eventually Catholicism always should, when it's talking about natural theology, means that you have to pay attention to science. You have to pay attention to what is in the world. What is objectively there and true in the world is what natural theology is all about. And that informs the rest of our theology, including our biblical theology, what we think about the Bible, and our anthropology, just as important. If one of the important things about the Bible is anthropology, it's anthropological story. Humans are created good. And why does that matter? That natural theology matter? Because our LGBTQIA siblings simply are. They are. They are. They exist. They are created to be who they are and who they are becoming. That is where natural theology should. That's where natural theology leads us, not where it should lead us. It's where it leads us. It looks at the world and it says what is true about it and relates it to the goodness of Genesis chapter 1. So this is why when natural theology has always kind of butted heads with the conservative part of the church. It's why scientists in 1500s, Galileo, who are Catholic, right, and discovering new things about the universe is a challenge to the conservative movement in the Catholic Church. But there is a progressive movement in the Catholic Church too that says, no, this is telling us something true. Now, natural theology has been used in ways that are destructive and harmful. But that goes that's a way that it shouldn't be used. It's been used in a way to say that humans are not created in the image of God. And interestingly, many Protestants used it that way during World War II against our Jewish siblings and also against our Black siblings. So racism infects this as well. But natural theology leads us to see the world as it is, God in the world, through science, to see that our Black and brown and Asian siblings, our LGBTQIA siblings, they exist as they are. And this is so crucial to Vatican II in order to make this point. It was one of the most important points that it made. And it is leading the Catholic Church. And I think Pope Francis, in his earlier statements and this statement, there's something weird about it. There's something really weird. But this natural theology is creating a division within the Catholic Church, and there may be a schism coming. And if that's the case, I say thank God for that. If you want more on natural theology and how it leads to this, being open and affirming, the best resource on this is James Allison. Tina says, in Catholicism, which I love, there is also politics, and what Pope Francis did was allow politics to influence his decision. Yeah. The fear of losing more people in what is happening in the church. The American bishops are taking advantage of that fear right now. It is annoying and frustrating to many of us. Thank you for explaining Catholicism at its best. We will get there eventually. Let's see. Thank you, Tina. Where is it? There was a bishop in, was it Antwerp, who came out. I'll see if I can link to that in the comment section. There was a bishop in Europe who said, this is awful and shameful of the Catholic Church for doing this. Shame on us was basically what he was saying. You can Google that and find it. My dog is coming over to say hi. James Martin also has some really good stuff on Facebook. Let's see. I think I've got it here. Anyway, this is really boring you. I know, as I'm like trying to figure out who it was who said this. Anyway, yeah, you can Google European bishop and find it. So that's why I think, Tina, you're exactly right. Like that there's a schism happening, not just in the Catholic Church. In our Methodist siblings are going through the same thing, and this is where it's going. Jenny says, I was hoping to hear from you about the Pope, and thank you, just thank you. I've become a better person having the acceptance in my life, and I hope Catholics get this too. One of the things that, thank you, Jenny. I'm always, yeah. One of the things about this that is difficult, and I know many of you are moving through this too. It's part of the conversation that I was having with my family member who was like, "Oh, Trump is just speaking the truth when he's talking about the China virus. He's just speaking the truth." And Jenny, you've brought this up, and so you're bringing this back to me. How do you have this kind of conversation? How do you move through this moment without getting caught up in the same spirit of hostility as those who we think are caught up in the spirit of hostility, right? How do we not become the mirror image of those who that are a stumbling block, that are getting in the way of the Spirit of God moving in the world and hopefully moving in the church to be radically more inclusive and loving? I often, some folks on my TikTok come to me and say, "Oh, you're just speaking the world. You're just wanting to be liked by the world." No, how about this? How about the Spirit? Jesus says the Spirit of God is going to blow where it will, and you can't control it. The church can't control it. And if the church is going to continue to divide the world up into good guys and bad guys, who is holy and who is unholy, who is loved and who isn't loved, then the Spirit of God is going to leave the church and go into the world and find a new way of being radically inclusive. Can I get an amen? That's what we're seeing happening. Of course, the world, however you want to label it, can mess up too. We all mess up. We all go overboard sometimes. But if the church is going to continue to exclude a certain part of humanity that just is created to be that way, then the Spirit's going to be like, sorry, I'm out of here. I'm going to go find some other people to spread God's love into the world. So, but how do we not mirror the same animosity and hatred against them that I feel that they're showing to people that I love? That part of it is realizing the times that I've messed up. I've been there, and I've needed people to gently nudge me, push me in the right direction. Another part of it is, I think, seeing the bigger picture, and that's where we all come in. What's the bigger picture? God is moving in the world. The bigger picture is that God may be saying bye to the church if we continue to be exclusive and use our power influence to harm people and exclude people. God's going to leave and go find some other people, and I say thank God for that. So I know this episode had a lot in it, and I only did 32 minutes. There's a lot there. Sexuality, shame, power dynamics, racism. It's all there, and I'm still trying to process it. And thank you for being here and processing it with me. Thank you for the amens. Yeah. Just a few things. One of my best friends, April says, one of my best friends is a gay priest. It's hard to watch the self-shaming. Yeah. I mean, I think that's another, April, thank you for saying that. I think that's another part of it where that self-shaming and might bring up some compassion for us, for those who are caught up in a system that doesn't allow them to be who they are. There are a lot of systems like that in the world. The Catholic Church happens to be a really big one that doesn't allow priests to be who they are. I was doing some research earlier a little bit, and there was one guy who was like, oh yeah, you can come to you can be Catholic and come, you just can't act out on it. You just can't get married, but you can come. That argument is like, you can come give us your money, but you can't be who you are. That goes against the creation theology that we talked about. You can't be who God created you to be. Who cares what science says? You can't. That goes against the fundamental creation theology that the Catholic Church, the Vatican, knows, but who was it that said it's political? They got to hold on to conservative members, and if they came out and did the natural theology and said we can't do this anymore, they're just living in fear, because I think people would flock. I think people would be like, oh, the Spirit of God is here. So that was Tina's great comment. Okay. Yep. Okay. George says answering racism with music and wit, featuring a brief primer. Thank you for that, George. I'll check it out. That's awesome. Cheryl, Japanese internment camp. Barry, racism has always been there, but loser Trump has brought them out of the closet, doing more harm, just as he did with January 6th. So I still blame the loser Trump for what he is doing now. Yep. It's a big deal here, Barry. But thank you for that. Yeah, it's how to take responsibility for this, and Trump is not going to take responsibility for what he's done, clearly. And how do the rest of us work together to bring this thing to an end? Julia, so disappointing. Yeah. April, I'm dealing with hatred with my Christian family members that are racist and intolerant of the LGBTQIA. Do I unfriend them? That's a good question, April. Boy, I would say if it's causing you a lot of distress, you don't need that in your life. Jesus says to his disciples, if you go into a town and they don't accept you, feel free to shake the dust off your feet and move on. So April, that is totally an option. If that's what you feel that you need to do, there's no shame in that. If you can stay in there and maybe talk about other things, I try to not, with certain family members that I want to stay continued connected with, I try to avoid politics and religion with them. That has been I've tried doing the politics and religion with them, just doesn't go anywhere. And I can use my energy in better places. So if you want to stay in relationship with your family and try to not talk about these things and use your energy better reserved for other places, I think that's fine. If you can have these conversations with them and your energy isn't depleted and you feel like you're making some progress with them, feel free to do that. Or if you just need to shake the dust off your feet and move on, that is an option too. Tina says, Mormons do as you can be gay, but you must marry the opposite sex. Yeah. There's interestingly, you can do some research on open and affirming Mormons. I think there's a movement within the Mormon church. A lot of them are leaving, but there's a movement there that's moving in the open and affirming direction too. Yeah, Julia, let's hope the UCC can continue. Yeah. Speaking of, my daughter is calling me and it's off the hook. Thank you for reflecting on this with me. There's a lot of work to do, and thank you for being here. And I'm going to take next week off from One Question and from our Bible study podcast that I do with Lindsay on Wednesdays. So we're going to take next week off. It's spring break for me, and spend some time with my family. So I'll be back in 2 weeks during Holy Week. We'll have some more conversations about God and questions you might have. So if you have questions, feel free to contact me over Facebook, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, the social media, and now on TikTok. Can't keep them straight. Anyway, friends, thank you. And until next time, hope you have a great week, and God be with you.